The National Interagency Fire Center says there are close to 80 wildfires currently burning across 13 states, in addition to Canada, prompting air quality concerns.
The drought has contributed to the number and the severity of the wildfires across the US and Canada.
David Brown with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency says Tuesday an air quality alert was issued for northern, central, and southeast Minnesota, spanning into Thursday
The
morning.
smoke is coming from wildfires just north of the border, about 150 miles north of the Northwest Angle in southwest Ontario, eastern Manitoba. We also had some smoke that came in from Wisconsin.
Dr. Andrew Steen, a pulmonologist with the Line of Health, says the smoke can lead to unhealthy conditions for vulnerable groups.
So some of our patients with COPD or asthma or cystic fibrosis might be very much bothered by the increase in particulate matter.
Dr. Steen says for those impacted by the smoke,
Some of the best advice is when it's a short duration is to just remain away from it. Try to stay indoors. The other recommendation actually is masking.
while winds are expected to carry the smoke out of the state into Thursday morning. As drought conditions continue, experts say air quality concerns may return.
We expect that we're gonna experience this off and on throughout the summer.
In Minneapolis, Charmaine Nero, KARE 11 News.